I'm with Ntara. You probably have heard of us at this conference as a company that deploys and designs product experience management solutions. So you may have heard about our work in PIM or DAM or e-commerce or consulting around omnichannel. But what you may not have heard about us, unless you're one of our many customers who are in the audience, is that we also have done primary research over the past 20 years for a number of clients. And some clients were doing this in support of digital transformation. Other clients were doing it for research sake itself. This comes from our founding officers who came out of academia. Our research clients include many of the esteemed logos that you'll see up here. And it's been used everywhere from Xerox revamping their entire B2B go-to-market strategy to regional distributors, nonprofits, and recently, during the pandemic, Johns Hopkins, we worked with them to help them improve access to pediatric care. So it really is, it's a multi-method methodology that uses qualitative and quantitative data. And in this, our 25th year of business, we decided it was time to give back to this community of ours in PXM and conduct a study about all of you. So, one of the reasons we did this is because you can't learn these things in PIM school. There isn't one. I looked, I asked my best friend, ChatGPT, and this is what it came up with. It's some cross between Pixar, Hogwarts, and a zombie apocalypse movie. There is no PXM, but we are really pleased to have worked with River to bring this study to today, and I'm going to share some of those insights with you. So without further ado, for the first time anywhere, we are debuting the 2024 U.S. Manufacturers Digital Commerce Benchmarking Study. This is an initial study that we are intended to run on an annual basis so that we can track trends. We're going to talk a lot about why manufacturing and how that may be you in just a moment, so don't check out if you don't belong in your mind to that group. But I do want to thank River for sponsoring the study. I think it's also worth noting that although River did sponsor this, help us to bring it to life, this is a platform-agnostic study. And there are groups from all over, all kinds of different PIMs, DAMs, other technology that are represented here, and it's really something that I hope you can find some insights from. All right, so a little bit about the study itself. I mentioned it's multi-method. We surveyed 158 individual companies. There's 435 responses to those, and in addition to that, there were dozens of qualitative interviews that took place as well, both to inform the study's creation and to help us with the interpreting the results afterwards. Those companies studied represented $26 billion plus in annual revenue, and it gave us over 9,000 individual points of data. I know some of you in the audience have participated in the survey that went out. Could you raise your hand if you participated? Anybody fill that out? Okay, I see a couple hands. Yes, thank you very much. And also, I'm sorry, that was a long survey. That's what enabled to give us 9,000 data points we can cross. But I'm so glad you did, because you'll see what we were able to do with it in just a moment. Now, I mentioned manufacturing might apply to you. Let's talk about that in terms of who our respondent groups were. We were targeting companies that fit a certain profile, and we knew were likely to be heavy users of omnichannel software. I'd like your help again from the audience. We'll do a quick poll. Could you raise your hand, please, if you are here and you consider yourself working for, in some capacity, an industrial manufacturer? Could you raise your hands? Okay, so quite a few hands. Now, the next group, I'm going to ask you to raise your hands, and please keep them up, because I'm going to ask a couple more questions. If you consider yourself working for a consumer manufacturer, please raise your hand. All right, keep them up, please. If you consider yourself working for CPG, raise your hand. A few more hands. Keep them up. Everybody keep them up, please. If you consider yourself working for a consumer durables, even more hands. Okay, you can put your hands down. My point here is that you guys are really difficult to profile. You do not want to be considered a manufacturer for some reason. But we, and really the last presentation from Pandora is a great example. They fit the mold for purposes of our survey as a consumer manufacturer, even though they'd more likely say, hey, we're a retailer. But for our purposes of our study, if you design, make, manufacture, and sell products, then you belong in this survey. And if you are a distributor, you're downstream from these folks, so please listen up. And if you're in retail, you are as well. And we know from working with both of you, a lot of these findings apply to you directly too. All right, so a little bit more about the industries. There's a great representation of participants from apparel and fashion, building materials on down. And here's where the industrial group, you guys get to be divas. You're like, don't put me in a category, please. I am other. I do not fit in anything in your box. But great representation here, and there's a large number of data points to pull from these groups. In terms of line of business, we had very good distribution here. Digital, IT, marketing, and product development were the top 4 categories in terms of folks who responded. And level of PXM responsibility. So what part of the decision-making process are you? We again had everything from C-suite executives who are making policy decisions and setting budgets down to VP directors. And in that large 18% other category were a lot of hands-on practitioners who are actually doing the work and in the PIM. So lots of good things, or other systems. So great things to listen to here. What did we find? Well, overwhelmingly, as the other keynotes have presented on today, this is a multi-channel world. We asked the question, how many channel types did you have that you're selling through? And channel types is an important word. We're going to spend just a moment on that. 68% of consumers are selling through 3 or more channel types. And over 50% of industrial brands are selling through 3 or more. This is absolutely huge, especially when you break it down and look at the types of industries the types of channels that are being used by both sides. Huge e-commerce presence on the consumer side and also industrial. You notice we differentiated between public and private e-com sites. Are you behind a firewall, paywall, that type, or not paywall, but a firewall, that type of thing. But I mentioned e-commerce, channel types. And the reason is that if you take this, it's like the smallest unit of measure we can use. Are you selling through a distributor? Are you selling through a retailer? Are you selling through independent retail? But when you break this down in terms of where product data has to show up in order for somebody to make a transition, you have this exponential growth of potential channels. So for each channel, let's pick on independent retail. If you're selling through independent retail, that's one channel type. But you might have 1,000 retailers that you're selling to. So that's 1,000 sales channels. Each one of those has their own marketing channels, and there are also content channels that support this. And I know that everybody here can understand this, that other places your data is showing up. And the comments were made earlier about the number of multi-channels touches that take place before somebody makes a purchase. Overwhelmingly, we found the same thing. 73% of people are making multiple touches before they make a purchase, and the more channels they touch, the more money they spend. So it becomes really important. There's only one way to handle this level of complexity, and it's not with Excel. It's with these digital transformation tools that we're all here to talk about. So we asked the question, where are you in your digital maturity journey? How are you at wielding these tools together to conquer this multi-channel challenge? And we found that about a quarter of folks were in the middle, this middle category here, where they said, we're getting started, we're getting rolling. About 30% were in the upper tier where they've got an established digital strategy. 3% said, hey, we are digital first as an organization, which is amazing. I would love to meet you and buy you a beer, because I haven't met that many that can claim that, but I know several who are on their way. But 37% are saying we are in the very beginning stages of this with enablement, which is crazy to me in 2024. I can remember, a younger, slimmer, more energetic Andy stood in front of executives years and years ago and said, you've got to be on e-commerce, you've got to be making these changes. And I feel like I'm still here today saying the same thing. And the reason is not because people aren't listening to me, I don't think. It's actually because the pace of change is accelerating, as was mentioned earlier. And 37% are saying we have limited pockets of enablement, we're really struggling in this area. And we asked the same question a different way, which is one of the things we like to do with research because it helps to validate responses. We asked, how are you in your digital maturation journey compared to your competitors? We ended up with kind of a similar dynamic here, where we found that, again, about 28%, about 30% are saying we're on par, we're in the middle with our competition. Sorry about that, guys, let me get this fixed. We had 18% in the upper echelon there, and 2.6% saying we got this, we are the leaders. And then, but a whopping 45% said we are behind or significantly behind our competition. And when you have that exponential growth of channels that everybody here is supposed to manage, and we have these great stories about the time or 2 or 3 or 5 that it gets done right, it's no wonder that this is a really difficult area to accelerate in. Digital transformation, I don't think is going to be over anytime soon. It's going to be, the way that people want to buy is going to continue to change faster than we can adapt. So having systems that are foundational to this, that can adapt and move and change, absolutely critical. So with that being said, I mean, one of the things I heard at a different conference that blew me away is that Amazon's been picked on a lot. We all shop through Amazon. We understand that as a cultural reference. But those product detail pages, 67% of those are updated on a quarterly or more frequent basis. 13% of them are updated on a weekly basis, which if you're in industrial manufacturing or you know, any type of consumer goods, you know that that's an extraordinary workload for one channel type alone. We also asked about company performance. And when you're asking a lot of questions in research, you don't often know which ones are the most important ones. Some of it you've got some ideas about, but I won't tell you that we get it all right. This ended up being the most important question that we asked. How was your company's performance in the last year? And by itself, I mean, it's kind of a nice chart to look at. We had nobody in 153 companies say, we did really bad last year. I'd imagine they're probably working on more important things than filling out a survey, if that was the case. But nobody said we were doing really bad. 14% said we were doing negatively, but a strong showing in the somewhat positive to very positive range. So this is a group that is pretty optimistic. Now, but the reason this question became so important for us is because we were able to take the data and answer for it. Well, what separates those companies? What separates you from the ones that are performing poorly, reported bad performance, and the ones that reported very strong performance? And the first place we looked was digital maturity, right? We're telling this story. So lots of channels, need the software, what's going to happen? Well, this was a strong correlation in this observational study. I do need to say, for our analysts' sake, this is not a double-blind or randomized trial. This is an observational study, so we're showing trends. There, done. So if you answered that you are a company with high digital maturity, then you were 29% more likely to report positive or very positive performance. It makes sense. It's intuitive. Not quite a bombshell, but important. And we wanted to dig deeper, though, and find out, well, what does digital maturity mean from these 9,000 points of data that we have? Well, we asked what tools were being used to bring things to market. You can see the distribution across consumer and industrial, pretty similar. Like, we know what these stacks are. We know what each system is supposed to do. Not everyone has everything. This is a select all that apply. But aside from e-commerce, the penetration was very similar for both sets of data. And when we asked the question, where are you planning to invest and upgrade these tools, things got interesting too. Because you can see, well, there is a huge amount of resources that are going to be put into these systems over the next 1 to 5 years. I would like to stop here and ask for your help again. I'm going to do another quick poll. So you see, I mean, this distribution is similar to the people who had the tools, right? So it makes sense that some of the upgrades would take about the same amount of priority. But could you just give me a poll with your hands, please? I want you to give me, on a scale of 5, 1 is, Andy, this is crap and this doesn't look like what our priorities are. And 5 is, you are a digital prophet and savant and this is exactly us. How did you know? How you feel seen, okay? So scale of 1 to 5, please show me it with your hands right now. Does this apply to your priorities in your organizations? Go ahead and raise your hands, let me see. All right, the data is looking pretty good. So lots of 3s, lots of 5s. The ones I see, I wanted you to use your thumb, not your middle finger. But you can see, I'll get off soon. Lunch is coming, I promise. But this is pretty accurate, okay? And ERP, that scares me to death. Someone who's been in technology for over 20 years. Upgrades there, this is, no offense, but it's not the agile space where changes can typically be made really fast. They're working on it, guys. But things that actually affect the customer, those are typically going to be in the other systems first. So with that being said, we wanted to dig in further and say, well, what systems of these are most critical? And guess what? And by the way, we're speaking at more than just PIM conferences, but PIM really did come to the top. We were asking the question about technologies. What do you think? How critical is PIM to a successful multi-channel digital commerce practice? Over 80% said it was critical or very critical. Those in this multi-channel world, they know this is the way. It is the answer to getting the data out into the multiple channels. When we ask similar questions about DAM, about the organization's knowledge for PIM and DAM, hey, does your organization understand how important this is? Because you're saying it is. Does your organization? And again, overwhelmingly, yes. These are well-known technologies. I guarantee you, 10 years ago, it would have been deer in headlights about PIM. DAM people knew, but PIM really, people did not understand what the heck it was and what it could do. So the orgs have a solid understanding. They know that they're multi-channel and they need help. So again, what separates those companies, those highly performing companies, we're all in the same competitive space, from those who did not? I lied to you earlier. I did it so I could have a dramatic pause here. This was the most important question that we asked. In asking the question, we had no idea, by the way, what were the primary drivers of upgrading or selecting your PIM was actually the most important question that we asked. Because in the 9,000 points of data, we finally understood what separated high-performing companies from those who did not. You can see the number one choice, single source of truth for product data. Again, if we were at this conference 10 years ago, it'd be like a big amen. We know that that's what PIM can do. And we did the same thing for DAM, centralizing the assets. In fact, I spoke at 3 conferences last year about the need for PIM to be the central source of truth for product information and DAM to be the central source of truth for product assets. So they are listening to me, I think, is the example here. But things get a little more interesting when you start looking at these motivators. Why are you investing in these systems? If you laid out all of the responses, and you do it in gray so you can have a dramatic color transition, you'll notice a few things. A couple things stand out. If you start to categorize these, you look at things like reducing human error, tracking and analytics or assets, centralizing assets, process efficiency, those types of things. Those are really focused on back office and driving bottom line savings. If you look at the items in blue, enhancing marketing capability, improving syndication, and working on really complicated things like rights management, which we could spend another whole 30 minutes on, but we won't. Those are different drivers, aren't they? Those have to do more with the front office experience, customer acquisition, than they do with squeezing more efficiency out of an overworked team that's got to handle lots of product data for channels. So we took this hypothesis and we coined this idea of users who are motivated, and these are not just users, by the way, this is C-suite who falls into this as well, into advanced PIM and advanced DAM usage versus more foundational. There's nothing wrong with centralizing your assets, guys. You've got to do it. But if your vision stops there, so does your progress. The examples we have from Pandora and from SAP really speak to that customer experience being absolutely critical. And the vision for bringing all that together, it doesn't happen because we wielded technology really great and we had a great deployment and the warehouse we built is super efficient and look how clean the aisles are and the forklift can fit right through. Heister, Yell, I see you, the forklift does need to fit right through. But it really has to do more with the strategy and the leadership in the company and how the technology is being deployed. How do I know this? Well, because the data tell me so. If we look at those respondents who said, we put PIM in place, PIM specifically, for enhanced marketing capability and for syndication to get our data out to multiple channels, they were 39% more likely to be in the positive or very positive financial reporting about their company, which is pretty incredible. This was the axis of segmentation, by the way. This was the thing that if people answered this way, they were the most different group from other groups, and yet they were homogenous to themselves. Exact same thing with DAM, within a few percentage points. If you reported the reason for putting this in place was to have enhanced marketing capability, to syndicate, or to manage your rights for images, which is, again, it's a complex topic, you were 36% more likely to land in advanced DAM users. Now, I can kind of see you in the audience, and I know there are several, probably most, that are better at statistics than I am, and I can see your skepticism because this is an attitudinal thing. How well did you perform? Was it good? I don't know, it was gooder than last year. we wanted to dive a little bit more deeply than that. And these results held up when we looked at, of the 153 companies, which ones were publicly traded. Our analysts went back and looked at the last 1, 3, and 5-year financial statements for publicly trading companies. And although the sample size was small, it was only 25, the data suggested the exact same trend. Lower SG&A as a percentage of overall revenue and a faster growth rate for top-line revenue for companies who reported these motivations for putting DAM and PIM at place. What this strongly suggests, now that was only 25 companies, so the sample size was small. Trust me, we're going to look more at that. But what this strongly suggests is that companies that are customer-focused, product-led, about the journey, and not just about the tech, the ones that are in the left brain, if you will, are the ones that are succeeding above all others in the marketplace. And I think the other good news is that people are catching on. Because when we ask these groups, not all of them put this in place to begin with, but we asked them, tell us about the future. What do you see as the biggest opportunities for improving how you bring these products to market? They didn't have the benefit of this study, so they didn't know about this really cool correlation. But a few things rose to the top. Improving data analytics, improving multi-channel syndication, and improving the user experience. This is amazing. People have caught on. They understand that even though, no matter where they're at in this big machine that has to be spun up to sell through multi-channel, it does have to be about having a more intelligent interaction with your end user and with telling a compelling story. Increasing automation, yes, I want to admit this is one of the top 4. Still very important. It's a foundational use of PIM, but it's not necessarily the thing that's going to separate the winners from the losers in the great multi-channel arms race of the 2020s. Last slide here. Second to last, actually. Want to show you, we asked the question, what's the biggest threat for how you bring products to market? And I think that this one, what's really fun about data is it does tell us a lot of things on its own, but it also leaves it open to our interpretation through experience. I love the muffin and dog example of how we can use our brains. But think about what story these top answers are telling you. The organization understands the importance of PIM. The organization understands the importance of DAM. It's critical to our multi-channel effort. And yet, the biggest threat to be able to move forward and be competitive, lack of team members and resourcing, lack of reliable data and analytics. It's also the greatest area for potential improvement. Restrained financial budget and silos between departments and functions. So I want you to ask yourself, is strategy or software going to solve these problems? Are larger budgets or leadership going to solve these things for companies? And I think the answer is we need all of those things in order to pull this together, because this isn't about a point solution. This isn't about looking at things as a single back office transaction where things are getting a little bit faster and going a little bit more. We have to get our collective heads out of the forest so we can see the trees. Okay, and we have to start, we all in this audience have an opportunity and a responsibility to put that customer, their journey, their experience at the forefront of all of these technology investments. They always need to be brought up. There needs to be an empty chair for that potential buyer in the meeting, so that, I'm going back to Sunday school, so that you can remember, some of you knew, that the buyer is at the center of this process. So to conclude, and don't worry, I know I saw some folks taking notes. I'm going to give you a chance to download this presentation in a minute, and please come by our booth because you'll be able to get the entire report, compliments of Ntara and River. Multi-channel is not just a buzzword. It is the way that consumers are interacting with your brand, buyers are interacting with your brand. It's the way that we're all interacting with each other. On my phone, which is on silent over there, there are messages from Teams, from Gmail, from WhatsApp, from text. I'm in a multi-channel communication situation on my phone, and we are all in that situation with all of our buyers and even our employees, as our data suggests too. So this is commerce. This is the future. Secondly, PXM is not something that we're excited about simply because we're at PIMpoint, although it is exciting to be at PIMpoint. This is something that is the answer. This bundling together of technologies and disciplines and buyer empathy is the path forward for managing this situation. And companies that do it well and that do it for the right reasons are outcompeting those who do not. And then finally, the great news is if you're here, you have the charge in your hands and you can make a difference in this march towards being customer-centric and product-led in your organization. Having that thought process at the forefront, even when you're solving one-off technical problems, will be absolutely key to being able to navigate the challenges that are here today and that are coming in the future. Strategy has to lead. It's product experience management. There is no experience, there's no X, without a customer, without a buyer experiencing it. And if you can't put them at the center, it doesn't matter how well you put this stuff in, you're not going to win and overperform. So thank you all for your time. You have the QR code here. I'll stand out of the way of it. You're welcome to grab this and download the full report now if you'd like, or please stop by our booth and you can feel free to do that then. But you have been a fantastic audience. Thank you for participation. The informal, unscientific polling you participated in, we'll send your rights away for that later. Thank you very much again.